This is Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this 12 by 12 inch granny square, and I had a request from a lady. She contacted me, was working off my pattern off my blog, and was having a little bit of trouble because this square is not worked like a normal granny square. You start with the square up here and then you work the rows working back and forth just on the two sides, and she was having a little trouble. And I told her, then I'm going to make you a video so that you can see how to do that and so that others can as well. And even though I did this in the American flag style, you can make this type of granny square in any colors that you would like. Now, this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and again, as always, you can find the blog link down in the notes underneath this video. So what you're going to need to make this 12 by 12 granny square that looks like a flag is 4 different colors of worsted weight number 4 yarn: royal blue, gold, red, and white. Now, these are all Red Heart Super Saver colors, and I chose to go with the Red Heart Super Saver because the blanket that the lady talked to me about is going to go to her son, and she wanted something really durable and washable. But you can use any worsted weight number 4 yarns that you would like. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook. This is an H 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. We're going to be using a needle for weaving in ends, and of course our pair of scissors. So to begin, we're going to start with the blue square first and then work our way back and forth with the red and white and then end with the gold rows. So we're going to begin first with our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 5. We're going to form this into a circle by putting the tail through the loop and snugging that down, and then making that little what I call stay knot. There we go. We're going to turn our loop over so that our tail is on this side and our working yarn is on this side. We'll go in the loop, pull up a loop, and chain 3. Now this chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to double crochet 2 more times. And then chain 2. And now we're going to repeat stitching 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 more times. There's 3 double crochets, chain 2. Chain 2. We need one more set of 3 double crochets. 1. Looks like we got our tail hooked in there. Let's pull that back out. There we go. There's our second double crochet and our third. We're going to chain 2, and then we'll join to the top of the chain 3. And this is how row 1 should look. And I apologize for it being dark, but it is blue. All right, so let's do row 2. We're going to slip stitch in the top of the next 2 double crochets, and then we're going to slip stitch in the next chain 2 space and chain 3. And again, this chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet. And in each of these 4 corners, we're going to be stitching 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2. So I stitch 2 more double crochets, chain 2, and now I'm going to stitch 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to chain 2. And we'll do this on each of the corners. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, there's the second corner. Alrighty, the last 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2. Join to the top of the chain 3. And then we're going to slip stitch again in those 2 double crochets. And then slip stitch in the corner and chain 3. And that's what row 2 should look like. So now we're going to do row 3, and I think by now you've noticed that the first 3 rows are basically the same as a regular granny square. So our chain 3 counted as our first double crochet. We're going to stitch 2 more double crochets, chain 2. We're in the corner, so we're going to stitch 3 more double crochets, we're going to chain 2, and then in this first, or I should say next, chain 2 space, we're going to stitch 3 double crochets. We're going to chain 2, and that brings us to the next chain 2 space, which is a corner. So we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And chain 2. And again, we're at the next chain 2 space on the side, so we're going to stitch 3 double crochets. And chain 2. And then we'll just repeat that 2 more times. A corner of 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, then chain 2, 3 double crochets in that side, and then chain 2. And we'll repeat this 2 more times. Alright, so I finished all the way around, and I'm going to join to the top of that chain 3. And I'm going to cut my yarn and tie off. And I'm going to pull that string to the back just to get it out of the way, and we'll weave that in a little bit later. But at this point, this is how the granny square should look. It's just a basic 3-row granny square. Alright, so now we're going to work with our red yarn. We're going to attach it to the corner. Chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets because that chain 3 counted as our first double crochet. Now we're only stitching 3 double crochets in this corner, not the typical 6 because we're not making a corner there. We're going to chain 2, and then in these next 2 chain 2 spaces we're going to stitch 3 double crochets and chain 2. Alright, so there's our 3 sets of 3 double crochet, chain 2, and this brings us to the corner. And in this corner we're going to stitch the typical 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Because that's the inside corner of our stripe. I'm going to chain 2, and now we're going to do what we did over here. We're going to chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and only 3 double crochets. All right, now we're not going to turn our work at this point. So what I want you to do is just make a chain 1, snug that down, and make a nice big loop. And we're going to move back over to our first double crochet of our red and join in our white. We'll go right to the top of that chain 3 and join our white in and chain 3. So we chained 3, and now we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2 in each of these 3 spots of our chain 2. Chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. There we go. Chain 2, and now we're back to the inside corner. And in this inside corner, again, we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. We're going to chain 2 and then stitch 3 more double crochets. Now we're going to stitch those last 3 double crochets. Chain 2, and then we'll stitch a double crochet in the last double crochet of the red. We'll go ahead and stitch a chain 1 just to hold it tight, and that's the way that it should look at this point. We've got a row of red and a row of white around just the 2 sides of our blue. Alright, now the way we're going to be working the stripes is we're going to be leaving the red and the white yarn attached, and we'll be carrying up the side of this yarn. And so we're going to go back to our red loop. We'll leave our white one over there. We've chained 1, so let's chain 2, so we have a total of chain 3, and we're going to turn our work. And we're going to go right in this first chain 2 space, chain 3, and stitch 2 double crochets right in that chain 2 space. And then chain 2. And then we'll work across, stitching 3 double crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces with a chain 2 in between. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, three double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, chain 2. You can see the stripes forming. And yes, we'll have some ends to weave in there. Now be careful not to pull out your white because you've got a loop there. We're going to be bringing that back up. Alright, so now we're back to this corner, and we're going to stitch a regular corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Chain 2, and then we're going to work our way back down this way. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Chain 2, and now we're going to put 3 double crochets in this space here. And then we'll chain 1 just to hold that from coming undone, and then we'll move back to where we were on this white side, or I should say the white stripe. We've got 1 chain 1, so we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and this just gets us up to where we need to be on these edges. Then we'll go right in the top of that chain 3 and chain 3. Now we'll go in all the chain 2 spaces, stitching 3 double crochets, chain 2 till we get to the corner. We'll stitch the corner the same with 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then we'll repeat down the side. go. So we stitched the 3 double crochets, chain 2 in between. So now we're to the corner, and we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Chain 2, and then we'll repeat what we did over here across here. 3 double crochets, chain 2 all the way across. We're going to chain 2, and then we're going to place a double crochet in the last double crochet of the red like we did back here. There we go. And again, make that chain 1 to hold it and make a nice big loop. And this is how your work should look at this point. So now that you understand how the sides go on our granny square, we're going to do this for 4 more rows so that we have 2 more rows of the red and 2 more rows of the white. So I continued my rows until I had 4 red ones and 4 white rows. And they're done exactly the same as the other 2, just as each row grows, it gets bigger, of course, but they're done exactly the same. And now we're going to tie off the white and the red. So I'm going to go ahead and just clip both of those. And we'll pull our strings through. And we'll need to weave those in with our needle to get them out of the way. And I've gone ahead and tidied up the strings from the beginning blue square, doing it the same way, threading the tail on my needle and weaving it in. And I like to get it all tidied up at this point so that we can finish off with our goldenrod edge. And the name of the yarn is called Goldenrod. Alrighty. So now we're ready for our trim. And what we're going to do is we're going to begin at this corner, and we're going to make a corner of 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. We'll work our way across, make our corner here, work our way down. We'll make a corner here in this space here. Then we'll work across, corner in the blue, and then back across. And this is the place where it can be a little confusing. So we'll take it nice and slow. So we'll put our hook in, grab our goldenrod yarn, chain 3, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then 3 double crochets. So we've formed a corner. Let's double crochet in there. And there's our first corner. Now we're going to work across here like we've done. 2 double crochets, chain 2 all the way across till we reach our next corner. So let's start with our chain 2, 3 double crochets, there we go. Working across, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2 till we reach that corner. So I worked my way across. Now I'm to the first corner here, and again I'm going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And then we'll work across this row the same way we did this one. 3 double crochets in the chain 2 spaces, and chain 2, and we'll work this all the way across till we get to this chain 2 space. So I finished stitching this row across as well, and now we're at the last chain 2 space, and then we're also at this area where it might be a little bit confusing as to where to put our stitches. So let's go ahead and stitch a corner in this last chain 2 space. Three double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets for the corner. And chain 2. Now if you look at this side, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of 3 double crochet, chain 2. So we want to make sure that we have the same amount on this side, not counting this corner. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's where we'll place those 3 double crochets, chain 2. So we'll go in here between those 2 red ones and stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2. Then we'll go in here between those 2 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then the last one here on the stripes, there we go, chain 2. Now we're going to stitch in this chain 2 space here that was the corner of our blue, and stitch 3 double crochets. Whoops, there we go. Got my hook stuck. Chain 2, and then we have these 2 chain 2 spaces. We can stitch our 3 double crochets, chain 2. And that gives us the same number of 3 double crochet chain 2 sets that we have on the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so now we're going to stitch a corner in the corner of the blue. Oops, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets for the corner. And chain 2. Now this last side, we're going to do what we did over here, just in reverse. So we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2 in the first chain 2 space of the blue. There we go. Chain 2. Same thing here. Then we're going to stitch in this corner of the blue where we have this red one. Chain 2, and then we're going to stitch in these 3 spaces like we did on the other side. Oops, there we go. Chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, bring it down a little, and then the last space, chain 2, and then we're going to join to the top of this chain 3, and then just slip stitch in those next 2 double crochets to get you back to the corner. And we'll go ahead and chain 3. And that's how it should look after your first row of gold. We've got 4 corners and 4 sides and a nice square granny square. Now we're just going to stitch 2 rows of the gold. These last 2 rows are super easy. All we're going to be doing is stitching the corners the same and stitching 3 double crochets, chain 2 in each of the chain 2 spaces. And this is going to give us a nice edge for our flag or whatever colors that you're using. So I'm stitching 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in this first corner. And then I'm going to work my way across, chain 2, stitching 3 double crochets, chain 2 in each of the chain 2 spaces until I reach that corner. Three double crochets, chain 2, there we go. Got stuck a little bit there. All right, here's our last chain 2 space on this side. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and then we'll stitch a corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And chain 2. So there's our second row of gold. And then what I did there, you'll repeat on the next 3 sides, and then we'll join to the top of our chain 3. So we're 3 double crochets, chain 2 in each of the chain 2 spaces, and then 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2 in the corner. As you can see, I finished my row of gold around the edge, and all we have left to do is one more row of gold. And all we're going to do is do it exactly the same. The corners, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and then chain 2, 3 double crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces for another row of trim. And then we'll be all finished with our granny square. These are 12-inch granny squares, so you don't have to make very many of them to make a nice size blanket or even just a lapghan. So I'm going to continue working this row the same as we did the last one and get it all tidied up. I finished that last row of gold. I'm going to tie off my yarn, cut it first. I joined to the top of the beginning chain 3, and now I'm going to pull that to the back just so that it looks neater and weave that in. And this is how it should look when we're all done. A nice big 12-inch granny square. I believe they call this a mitered square because of the way that it's stitched, and it really is a cool way to do this, and I think that it would look great with lots of other colors as well. So this is my American flag granny square.